एकमक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम्। हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् अहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति। हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवतु। देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्ततभावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिय दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्। Namo Ramana. We have been meditating on the verses of Anma bodham, the Tamil translation of Atma bodha, the translation being done by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We are summarizing the meditations and we have come up to verse number 29, which covers the segments, the introduction of 6 verses, then the reality of the world from 6 to 15 or 14, and 15 to 29 being the verses on discrimination between the upadhis and the Atma Swarupa, which are to be heard and meditated again and again. Shravana Manana has to be done about the verses 15 to 29, which gives us the viveka between the upadhis, the instruments of perception, which the consciousness limits itself and uses to perceive the worlds in which it is trapping itself. That Viveka segment we have summarized in our last satsang. We are to summarize the Nididhyasana segment today, 30 to 40, the verses 30 to 40. What is the difference, the key difference between the Viveka segment and the Nididhyasana segment? If we can grasp it, then that will help us in practicing the teachings much better. In the Upadesha of the Viveka, of the discrimination, the Acharya uses Atma in third person, that the Atma is like this, the Upadhis are like this. Whereas in the Nididhyasana segment, he is going to make the sadhaka himself identified with the Atma. That the verses are so designed that now we are not going to talk what is the Anatma, what is the Atma, or what is the Upadhi and what is the Atma Swarupa. We are to identify with the Atma Swarupa and say that I am like this. So the sadhana and the attention is now not an objective understanding anymore. It is to be a practice to transform who we actually are. So with that sense, the underlying practice between the two, 15 to 29, is Viveka segment. You can objectively, intellectually understand. Oh, these are the limitations I adorn, and the huge worlds appear to constrict me only if I perceive through these upadhis. But that objective study is now ended, and we have to begin Nididhyasana. What is the Nididhyasana? The implementation of the objective learning, and the implementation consists of transforming ourselves. And how is that to be done? That is covered in these 10 verses. Neti Neti, 30th verse. Neti Neti Vakinal Niki Upadhiyalam Midiyam Jivanma Midila Adiyam Paramanmakkalin ஐக்கியமாம் வாக்கியங்கள் செப்புவதோர்ந்து தெளி. So 30th verse says that what is the sadhana to be done? The sadhana to be done is now we have constricted ourselves to be this body, to be this breath, to be this mind, to be this intellect, and to be this separative ego. What was the discriminative segment saying? You are none of this. That you are not, and it was saying that objectively. Now in this segment we are going to subjectively implement it. What is the first verse saying? First verse, what is it that we are going to do? Nididhyasana. We are going to free the apparently limited consciousness of all the upadhis through the sadhana of neti neti. That whenever an upadhi appears as the object, like the senses or the sensory world, the breath or the breath related energies, or the emotions, the thoughts, the abstract thoughts of the intellect, or the ego itself, if it appears also, one should let that go. Neti, this is not me. And what will you realize when the limited consciousness drops all the upadhis? We will realize the Mahavakyas. Because all the Mahavakyas talk only of the Jiva Para Aikyam. What are the Mahavakyas? Tat Tvam Asi. Tattvamasi we have. That is from the Chandogya Upanishad Samaveda. That thou art, that Paramatma is what? You are. This is Upadesha Krama, it is said. That in Upadesha, the Jiva Para Aikyam is indicated by the Guru by saying Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi Nididhyasana, that I am Brahman, is the Nididhyasana, which we are going to see. Directly Nididhyasana Mahavakya, that is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad of Yajurveda. Then Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnana is Brahman, that the whole limitless consciousness itself is Brahman, the ultimate. That is Aitreya Upanishad of Rig Veda. It's as we do sadhana, we may expand our awareness and feel that the consciousness permeates everything. But that consciousness has to be merged with Sat, with existence. And when that Sat and Chit merge, we call that as the Paramatman or the Brahman. So Prajnanam Brahma is from Aitreya Upanishad Rig Veda. I am Atma Brahma. This very Atman is Brahman. That is Mandukya Upanishad from Atharva Veda. So what do we realize by doing Neti Neti? By freeing the limited, apparently conditioned consciousness. Now, who will free us? Will the Upadhis come and free us? The limited consciousness only has to take the responsibility to free itself of the Upadhis. Why do I need these Upadhis which constrict me? And how is that to be done? Whenever the Upadhi Unarvu is there, an adjunct feeling is there. Now I have the sensory body, I have this breath, I have this mind, I have this intellect, I have this ego. Then that has to be dropped with the Neti Neti. What will be realized? The truth or the essence of the Mahavakyas, which is the Aikyam, oneness of the Jiva and the Para. That will be realized. The next verse 31, how is this identification with Upadhis that arises for the Aham? Now he has said the I has to free itself by Neti Neti. Now how is it that we have identified with this body? Avidyayal Anavai. Aha Mudarkanum Ivai Kumirigal Pol Aழிவு எய்தும் இவற்றின் அயலாம் அமல அகம் பிரம்ம மாம் என்று அயராமல் என்றும் அறி. Without resting, without letting up, inquire what is it that causes me to identify with the Anatma. That is the forgetfulness of who we really are. And that is the sadhana what Bhagavan gives us. That what Bhagavan gives us, that there is this identifying and separating I, which is the ego in its impurity. In its impurity, it strongly identifies with one of the upadhis and therefore feels it is struck in a world of objects. And there is the permeating I. Permeating I means that which permeates the subject and the object. That is what is given to us in self-enquiry. In self-enquiry, whenever an object presents itself, because of our upadhi identification, what we have to do, we have to inquire for whom is this perception of object. Then you will put attention on that I, which permeates both the subject and the object. The self-awareness always permeates both the subject and the object. So from separating I, we move to the permeating I. So why is it that I am identified with these upadhis? It is because I have forgotten my real nature. It is avidyayal anavai aham mudarkanum ivai. All these worlds, the body and the worlds, they arise because of my avidya, my not knowing who I am. Why we should do neti neti? If you can understand that and do neti neti, that is fine. But the intellect may ask, why? How is it that I identified with this? It is because you have forgotten who you really are. And Bhagavan comes to our aid with self-enquiry. He says that whatever may be the object that may appear, you have always got to be there. So by paying self-attention, you can go to the permeating I, the pure I, rather than the differentiating or the separating I. Avidyayal aanavai ahamudar kanum ivai kumizhigal pol azhiveidum. All these, how they will be destroyed? We were reading in another satsang in the morning that the whole of time and space is permeated by the I. That if you ask, for whom is this time? For whom is this space? The answer will come for me. We may not get as time and space. We may get that I am in Seattle, that India is in some other place, or I am in this time zone, about 12.5 hours behind the Indian Standard Time. When we have this sense, Bhagavan says, don't identify with that. That is Upadhi Unarvu. And why does that Upadhi Unarvu arise? Because I have forgotten who I am. The consciousness has forgotten what it is and identified with the time sense and with the place sense. So what it has to do, it has to simply inquire, for whom is this feeling that I am in Seattle. In that verse which we were reflecting in Ulladhanarpada, it is said that only so far as you identify with the body, you feel trapped in time and space. That you were born in so and so year, and by whatever averages of existence you have, you may expect to live within inverted commas up to this point. So we are trapped in that time, and we are trapped in space because I am definitely in Seattle in a room in this body. So it is the body identity, the Upadhi Unarvu. How has that arisen according to this verse? It is because I am constantly forgetting that I am the pure consciousness. And how to generate that identity with pure consciousness, which permeates time and space? I have to ask, who feels he is present in Seattle? Who feels that so and so place is in such distance and in so many time zones away? The answer will be for me. When who am I is held, even in sadhana, we are going from the separating I, which has identified with this body and separated itself from different bodies by time and space. We go to that I, which permeates time and space. So the time and space are killed. Kalosmi and Kala Kalan. You yourself become the Kala Kala and kill everything in time. But what is that? It is actually fulfillment. Whatever they really are, whatever those entities, including time and space, really are, that is where you are going. That which is the indestructible nature of every destructible entity, they are going to be destroyed in time anyway. So you do it now itself is the teaching. That don't get trapped in time. Be the Kala Kalan. By doing what? By holding the I. So the reason for the attachment to the Upadhi is given as avidya. And when that avidya is crossed with Atma Vicharam, what happens is that all that which we were previously considering as the huge world and the body which is trapped in this huge world, all that get destroyed. Destroyed in what sense? Now seen only as the essence, not as the name and form, but as the gold. The 32nd verse, உடலுக்கு வேறென வேறெனக்கு உண்டாதல் மூத்தல் ஒடுக்குன்றல் சாவு முதல் ஒன்றாம் படர்ந்த ஒலிமுர் புலன்களோடு ஒன்றலன் கின்றேன் அலன் பொறிகள் ஆனதால் ஆனது adal. Now, two things that we are taken step by step from here. The first two verses, as usual, it liberates the from the whole area. That first verse says, do neti neti to all the upadhis. If you understand, good enough. The next verse gives you reason for our identity with the upadhis as forgetfulness of the self, ajnana. From here on, he is going to take manas, the body, the mind, and then the nature of the self. So, what is the freedom from or the neti neti of the body? I am not the body. As we said in Nididhyasana verses, the shift is from objective teaching about the discrimination between Atman and the Upadhis. The Acharya is now designing the verses in such a way that the very chanting of these verses is Nididhyasana, that I am to identify with the Nirupadi Brahman, with the Nirupadi Atma Swarupam. Udalukku Veralan, Verenak, I am apart from the body. Therefore, I don't have aging, I don't have illness, I don't have death. I am not identified with sound and other senses. Therefore, hearing, seeing, all these don't limit me. So, the bodily identity, what once we drop it, is there any feeling to the consciousness that it has aged? Just one thought. I remember standing next to my father in Chennai about 55 years ago. He was standing near the window in the corridor, just joining the road, and I was standing by the side of him. What consciousness was there at that time is the same consciousness that is there now. I don't feel any difference. I don't feel old. Only when we think of the body and its ailments and its aging, then we feel that we are old. So, but the otherwise the consciousness does not have aging. I feel it's the experience of everyone that we don't feel old at any time. We just act from that consciousness, which is the same. So therefore, the old age, the illnesses, the identity with death is all not there for the consciousness. Neither is there identity with the limited karmas of seeing the other, hearing from other, and all those things. Manamalanan, 33rd verse, having done neti neti for the udal, what is the de-identification from the mind going to do? Manamalanan, man, tuyar, asai, acham, adiyanai sera. The moment you de-identify with the mind, the emotions that you identify with, usually the intellect is identified with the discriminatory abstract thoughts, and mind in tradition is connected with the thought filled with emotion. Manamalanan adalal man tuyar, the sorrow, asai, desire, acham, fear, adiyane, sera. Where is the fear? Where is the desire? Where is the sorrow? So when sorrow comes, when we feel that so and so is suffering, this should not have happened to them, this is an unfair test given to these good people, so we construct a sorrow. Why that is given existence? Because we have forgotten the permeating God, that God is permeating every existence. If we understand, then we won't do the judgment. The judgment happens by that supreme, and we don't judge and get trapped as a jiva. So how to be non-judgmental? This is agreed upon by scientists, by Buddhists, by everyone, that judgment is the one that traps the consciousness through the mind. And mindfulness techniques they give. Scientists, they say, we go and become creative when we go into the I do not know state. See, the I do not know doesn't have good or bad. Richard Feynman in his talks, he says that I clearly understand all the powers in creation can be used for good or bad. Religious power, spiritual power, power of silence, everything he includes in scientific power, in power of education, in power of medicine. All that can be used for good or bad. So the good pattern and the bad pattern underlies the whole of creation. That duality, according to him. Now, how to cross that? How to bring creativity which is not trapped by good and bad? So he says, keep the door of I do not know that the jiva can never really know what is really good or really bad, and keep that door of I do not know ajar and bring creativity from there. Then let the world use that creative portion as it wants. And Buddhism says that same space of I do not know can be consciously entered into if you do not judge the happenings as good and bad. So when you are merely witnessing, you are bringing the I do not know, and it is not to be used merely for scientific, social, or psychological discoveries, but as a very way of living. But in Bhagavan, what happens? The story of the witnessing the flow of life, this involves time and space. This involves the division between the witness and the witnessed, the act of witnessing, as well as time comes in. You will have to say witness moment by moment. Whereas the Atma Swarupa is beyond time and space also, that it consumes the act of witnessing, it consumes the witnessed, and it consumes the witness also. Therefore, this completes the story of spiritual journey. In spiritual journey, the mindfulness may bring you up to non-judgmentally observing the flow of life. But still, there will be a doubt, how am I going to maintain it? So they will say moment by moment. Whereas this moment by moment, as well as subject, object, and whether that witnessing is really witnessing, all this is consumed in the Atma Swarupa when the Manas is consumed. So there is no tuyer, there is no asai, there is no acham, because the good and the bad are now removed from the objective space. It is all filled by the self. What gives reality to or strength to tuyer, asai and all is breath. So, inamaha apranan manamillan சுத்தன் என்றும் மறை செப்புகின்றது என்றோ தெளி. So not only this verse does neti neti to mind, but also does neti neti to pranan, which actually adds strength to the emotion. So when the breath is irregularly moving and we are having fear, the fear gets enhanced. When the breath is irregularly moving and we are angry, the anger gets manifested with great strength. So not only is the mind to be freed from, even the breath, which gives emotional energy, the energy to the good and the bad, that is now removed as non-self, and one is freed of identification with that. மனமலனான் ஆதலால் மண்ணு துயராசை சினம் அச்சம் ஆதி எனை சேராது என்னை சேராது. Now the Nididhyasana verses is not that Atmane seradu, ennai seradu. This is how it has to be meditated, that I am free of the mind, I am free of the breath. That is 33rd verse. 34th verse onwards we are going to see then what is actually you. What exactly is your nature? You are the consciousness which is Nirgunan, Niranjan, Nityan, Nirakaran, Nirvikaran, Suddhan, Nishkriyan, Nirvikarpan, Nittamuktan, முன் நிகழ்த்திடப்பட்டவை அத்தனையும் நான் என்றறி. So you are the Nirgunan, Niranjanan, Nityan, Nirakaran, Nirvikaran, Nishkriyan. There is no karma to do because everything is permeated by you. All the objects being seen by you and all the events happening in front of you are all permeated by you. That is what is the finishing. Nirvikarpan, Nittamuktan, Mun Nigaltidapattavai Attanayam. Whatever is happening in the objective space is you only, is permeated by the self-luminous self. See, the self-luminosity or the I holding itself eternally is possible only for the all-permeating self. If it has left anything without permeation, then it cannot touch itself. It will still be apurna. The purnatva comes because it has permeated the entire objective space. And we can now, even in sadhana, you can realize that, oh, this is where Bhagavan is taking me. He is taking me to that self, which is not identifying with one of the subjective entity and separating itself from the whole objective space, but is going to take me to the all-permeating I, which is going to end the story only as a self-luminous self, that the I is the Meyaham that is referred to in Aksharamanamala. It cannot see anything other than itself because it is completely permeating everything. So, all these happenings are you only. 35th, Agayam Pol, Agilatin Ulveliyan Sahadan Sarvasamachittan Dehadi Yavatrum Patratran Endrum Amalan Saliyan Avanan Endre Ari. Once again, like space, but not space. Beyond space, this is. Agayam Pol, Agilatin Ulveliyan. Agayam is referred because it has the indication as it is present within the pot and in the walls and outside the walls of the pot. Therefore, it is taken as an analogy. But Agayam itself is not the self. Agayam Pol, Agilatin Ulveliyan, Sahadan. Now, how can death be there? Death can be there only when one is identified with something that is born. That is a separate entity from the rest. As the self-luminous self, which alone is, there is no birth, therefore there is no death. When somebody will ask Bhagavan, what is going to happen after my death? Bhagavan will say, see if you are born now. At this moment, see if you are born. That removes the Bandhamuktiyati tamparam sukham vindati jivastu devika. That when the bondage itself is not there, where is the question of thought of liberation? So, such a one in the investigative journey, introspective journey, the Ulveli is the final conditioning. Because Guru has said, go inward and hold the eye. We are going to hold the eye till when? Till this Ulveli is also transcended. Ulveli is an upadi or a limitation which the Guru necessarily has to employ and say, go for the immanent God. Go for the God who has permeated everything. Since that consciousness has permeated everything, it must have permeated you also. So find the permeating consciousness within you, then you will understand that it itself is the transcending consciousness. Ahayam pol ahilatin ulveliya. But ullada inside only you have to experience that which is permeating everything. That itself is the all-permeating self. Dehadi yavatrum patratran. Where can be any attachment to any body? Endrum amalan. Always pure. Saliyan. Samachittan. Always not irritated, not vexed, not moving from one to another. That is what? That is who? That is you. So the shloka is I am, I am, I am, I am. The rest of it we can even drop. I am so and so can be, the so and so can be dropped, but they are all indicative of the I am, which doesn't change. 36. Yadu nityam suddham, yadu muktam ekam, yadu akanda inbu, irandilla, yadu sattu chittu anantamahum, tigal brahmam, vastuvan yane, na vastu yane yam madi. I am that akanda inbu. I am the nityam, shuddham. I am the muktam. I am the ekam. Whenever second comes, whenever another comes, you understand that you have forgotten your permeating self, self-luminous self. Whenever you see another, job is there to do. Immediately inquire, for whom is this other? For me. Who am I? I am that ekam, nityam, shuddham, muktam, akanda inba. There is this cannot be split. This is not divided. So akanda inba irandalla. Why it is Akhanda Inba? Because there is no two in it. Edu Sat Chit Anantamahum. It is existence, consciousness, and eternal. Tigar Brahma Vastu Yam. Initially having identified with the body and identified with the set of thoughts, now with the Nirupadi, I am realizing I am the self-luminous self, having permeated time and space, having permeated all the objects, having permeated all the events that is happening in front of me. How is the permeation realized? That now the I is spontaneous and spurati. How is that spuranam possible? If some objective things have not been permeated, spuranam will not be allowed, because that spuranam is pre-existing. It is the Ishvara's nature. It is the Satchittu of Arunachala. It is already existing, and because it is already existing, only you are able to do the sadhana. Because Arunachala exists, because the self exists as the I, you are able to do the sadhana and drop your upadhis. Otherwise, how is dropping of upadhis possible if the truth is not pre-existing? 37. Nirandaram ivvaru நிகழ்த்தப்படும் அப்பிரமே யானாவன் என்னும் உறுதி அழிக்கும் அறியாமை அலைவுகளை நோய்கள் ஒழிக்கும் ரசாயனம் மொத்தம். If one medicine can remove all the diseases that you know of, then that medicine is this Aham Brahman. That who am I enquiry is the one medicine. And Akka used to remind us from the Ramana Gita expositions that Sarva Klesha Nivarti. What is the end result, or what is the use of Atma Vicharam? It is the removal of all the kleshas. It is Sarvaroga Nivarini. Nirandaram Ivvaru நிகழ்த்தப்படும் of Brahmame Yanavan. That the I being freed of the body, the mind, the breath, the emotions, the intellect, the ego, that realizes itself to be the self by doing what? But by doing continuously Ajadaraya Srotasasana. This Nididhyasana has to be done continuously, like the flow of oil or ghee. Who am I? I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not the breath, I am not the emotions, I am not the thoughts, I am not the intellect, I am not the ego. Then who am I? I am that Satchitanandam Anantam. And that is it is like one medicine which can destroy all the illnesses. 38. In how to do this Akanda Dhyanam or Akanda Nididhyasanam is Ekanta Desattu Irundu Asayindri Velipogadu. Two things. Desires of other things and not go outside. When the Guru has said that the truth is to be Udalulle Tannunar. Inside the body, experience the immanent self. Once the Guru has said that, we should hold that. Ekanta Desattu Irundasi. The moment you are inverted, that is Ekanta Desa. You decide that I have to follow Bhagavan's teachings. I should not go outside. I should not pursue the desires that are arising in me. That is Ekanta Desa. What distraction is there? Whichever place you are able to do these two things, that itself is Ekanta Desam. Irundu, but it may help in the beginning. Bhagavan would say to Kunjuswami, who was standing near some people talking various gossips, Bhagavan observes him standing there. Then later he cautions him. Why were you standing with those people who were gossiping? Your mind will get attuned to that. So in the beginning, that kind of fence, that not getting involved with those places where our distractions are there. Ekanta Desam means distraction free place either sound wise, sight wise, go and sit there. And ஆசையின்றி வெளிப்போகாது என்றும் பொறிகளை ஏகமாம் அந்தமில் ஆன்மாவை அந்நியமில் புந்தியனாக சிந்திக்க வேண்டும் தேர். Without any extraneous thought, be focused on who am I. Whenever the objective events, objective thoughts, objective emotions come, don't be the separating I, be the permeating I. The 39th verse, புத்திமான் காணும் பொருளெவையும் ஆன்மாவில் புத்தியால் ஒன்றல் புரிவித்தே சுத்தமாம் விண்ணென ஒன்றாய் விளங்கிடும் ஆன்மாவை எண்ணுக எப்பொழுதும். We have seen earlier itself that all the objects, all the events are now permeated by the self-attentive eye. What is the self-attention doing? What is the Guru teaching us by holding the self-attentive eye? Suppose I think of my enemy. I feel that person has caused all the troubles in my life. That thought comes to me. Bhagavan is saying, don't separate yourself from that person. If you separate yourself from that person, you will think what to do with him and what he has done to you. So, there is an I within him, there is an I within you. Hold that. That is the best forgiving possible. That is the best freedom possible. What to do when the thought of the enemy comes? For whom is this thought when we ask? Then that I which permeates yourself and the enemy self is unified with that one self, which is beyond personalities, which is beyond good and bad, which is beyond mind, which is beyond intellect. So, புத்திமான் காணும் பொருளேவையும் ஆன்மாவில் புத்தியால் ஒன்றல் புரிவித்து. How do we unify all that? I feel I am in this room and in Seattle. That thought is overpowering. So I should ask, who feels that he is in Seattle? I come to that I which permeates the whole of the concept of place. And that is my real nature. Who am I? I am not the one trapped in the body, trapped in this place. I am that I, which is self-luminous. Its self-luminosity comes because it has identified with that which has permeated everything. And that which has permeated everything is already present as the self in all. That is how now there is no asayana, because whatever objects you see, you have permeated. That is what Bhagavan teaches to Nagalakshmammal. Nagalakshmammal, I think, is her name, the great one, the mother of Ganeshanna, the better half of T.N. Venkatraman, our Sarvadikari for a very long period of the Ramanashram. He tells her when she sees that incident which we have meditated upon for so many occasions, and which is a great teaching from Bhagavan, which helps us to come to the all-permeating self. What did he say to Nagalakshmammal when she just appreciates the saree owned by some people who have come from Chennai? They go, Chennai or some other place, they go to their home and send 2 silk sarees by post, by parcel. And as usual, the parcel comes to Bhagavan before redistribution to the concerned person in the ashram. And he calls, hey, Nagu, call Nagu. And he says, see, ma, whatever you see in another is already in you. Is already in you. She says, no, Bhagavan, I did not ask for the saree. I did not desire for the saree. I had a desire only for the color. That quality was good. I was just merely appreciating that quality of the saree. That is all I did. And Bhagavan says, again he says, whatever you see outside of you is already in you. Already in us as what? As Atma Swarupam. The color, the beauty which we feel is in some other place. Some beautiful hills are there, resplendent with great flowers. We see that. But then the real beauty is in permeating the scene by holding the eye. So, Buddhiman Kanum Purulevayavum, Anmavil Buddhiyal Ondral Purivit. That is not apart from me, that is permeated by me. Shuddhamam Virnana Ondrai Vetlangidum Anmavai Ennuha Eppodume. Only hold the permeating self or the self-luminous self. The 40th verse of Nididhyasana, உள்ளது உணர்ந்தோன் உருவம் வருணம் முதல் உள்ளும் உள்ள அயல்கள் ஒன்றும் ஒன்றும் ஒன்றாக ஒழித்து உள்ள திகழ்புரி பரிபூன்ற சிதானந்தம் தானா திகழ்ந்திடுவன் நாளும் தெளி. All the differences that we see as ayal, as he is of this color, he is of this creed, that person is of this religion, those people are all harsh, all these thoughts are now removed. They, because ayalai arivadu ariyamai, anything other than the self, if you know, it is ariyamai, not merely directly ariyamai, because they are not that people whom we identify them with. It arises only in the tannai ariyada nilai. Any objective knowledge of saying so and so belongs to this creed arises only because you have identified yourself with some other creed. Whereas you are the creedless, the nameless, the formless, the limitless, the Akanda Atma Swarupam. Therefore, you don't limit anyone. உள்ளது உணர்ந்தோன் உருவம் வருணம் முதல் அயல்கள் ஒருங்கு ஒழித்து, all these alien things been bunched up together and cut asunder, as they can't be anything other than the self-luminous self. That is the nididhyasana that we have to do, that we are not the separating I, identified with one upadhi and separating itself from the other object, but I am that all permeating I, which has cut asunder the knot. The Chit Jada Granthi has been cut asunder by the Atma Swarupam, which alone shines as I. That is the Nididhyasana segment. We'll have to probably go to the next two segments together in the next talk or satsang. Let's sit in Atma Vicharam till 8 o'clock. Then we can await Akka's talk on the same subject. Ujjwalji, we can sit in Atma Vicharam till 8 o'clock. Namo Ramana.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings, by the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana. We are able to meditate on his teachings as encapsulated in the Anma bodham, the translation by Bhagavan of the Anma bodham of Adi Shankara. And we are being blessed now to go through once again in a succinct form the verses of Anma bodham. Each one of these verses is actually, as Nandakumar ji told us during this recollection today, the verses are such that even one chants them, even one just repeats the words in these verses, such verses automatically take us back to the source. Each one of them is like that. This is the power of the verses. In Ulladinarpada also, if we see Bhagavan's Ulladinarpada, each verse will be complete in itself. We don't have to look at all the 40 verses. Even so, in these verses. But this segment, as he said, is on the actual practice. So far, the theory has been given to us, and now the Nididhyasana is being given to us by saying, this is for me, not theoretically, this is how the Atma is, this is how the Sadhaka is. It's not like that. It is directly in the me, this is for you, this is for you. So, like Muruganar Swami says in his composition, which is one of my favorite compositions, he says that Bhagavan gave me the clarified butter. Adara Shivat Anubhuti Unakku Ida. It is yours, here, take it. Vedāgamajñāna venai unava udari uvandane uttinane. It is for you. It is yours. It belongs to you. So that is where these verses are telling us this is our own true nature. Our own true nature. They are re-emphasizing the fact, and by negating what is the non-truth, we come to the truth that is exemplified, or that is codified for us in the Mahavakyas. This Neti Neti, the negation of the body, the negation of the breath, the negation of the mind, the negation of the likes and dislikes of the intellect, all this is codified for us over here in these verses. And as Nandakumar ji also pointed out to us, that in the very beginning, Bhagavan makes us hold on to the Asi Padam. In that Tattvamasi, in that Mahavakya, we may say that Bhagavan's Mahavakya is Tattvamasi because he says Arunachalam is Tattvamasi. At Tattvamasi Aruna Purulam, he says. So that is what he gives us. You are that. And even in that, Satyamangalam Venkatramaiah says, Asipatatturuvanavan. Bhagavan is not even doesn't even need the Mahavakya that you are, but he is just that being itself. So Asipadattu Uruvanavan. The Asi is revealed by Bhagavan, the Sat is revealed by Bhagavan in that Sat Chit Ananda, and the Chit and the Ananda are automatically there when the Sat is there. So that is the Nididhyasana to which Bhagavan takes us in self-enquiry, and that is why it is Sarva Klesha Nivritti. It destroys all problems, because a problem which arises from the body, say if we have negated the body, then we may not be worried by the bodily problems. or if we have negated our identification with the prana, we may not be afflicted by the emotional problems, we may not be given to emotional swings. Or if we have done the neti of the mind, we may not be afflicted by the mental thought waves. Or if we have done the neti of the intellect, we may not be even worried about the good and the bad, the likes and the dislikes. But still, the one who does the neti would still remain. So that's why Bhagavan brings the Sarvaklesha Nivritti by questioning for whom is all this. That is the pervasive I. As Nandakumarji told us today very beautifully, the pervasive I, which we may say is like the Akasha, not the Akasha, because I remembered when he was saying that, I remembered the Subrai Sharma saying, see, what of the self? It is glory. What can one say? When the ordinary sky is Sarvavyapi, it is everywhere, the ether, the space is everywhere, it is untouched by anything else. When these qualities are there in the ordinary sky, so he called the Akasha the ordinary sky, but the example is given to bring us near in concept to that vastness, that the magnitude of the self, the permeating nature of the self. And when we look at the neti neti, because it is important, even in who am I, we have the neti neti in the who am I question answers by Shiva Prakasha Pillai. But when we ask ourselves who am I, the neti is already done. Because we cannot ask ourselves who am I unless we have come to a point where we have understood we are not what we have taken ourselves to be. It's only when we understand that we are not what we have taken ourselves to be, then the question, who am I, rises in us. So already everything has been negated. By the time one is asking oneself, who am I? The neti is implied in it. And it is happening as a consequence of this question or as a prelude to this question, one may say. But Adi Shankara not only denies the, see, one thing is he's saying over here that due to forgetfulness we are getting caught in this identity, forgetfulness of our real nature. But forgetfulness leads to us to think about ourselves as the body, think about ourselves as the mind, and further to then have desire and fear. So that's why in this it was said that everything is already yours. Anything that you may desire is already yours. The example of Nagalakshmama was given to us, reminded, where Bhagavan says, everything is already yours. And Adi Shankara, in one of his compositions, it is called Anatma Shri Nigarhanam. He says, what if it is not yours also? What are you going to do by gaining anything other than the self? What are you going to do by gaining it? Even if you have Shambhor Loke Shasito Vadatakim, what if you're even ruling the kingdom of Shiva? Even if you're Shiva himself, if you are not abiding in the self, of what use is it? And Bhagavan says in his Atma Vidya Kirtanam also, if you don't know yourself, what are you going to know? Tannai aridalindri, pinnai edarigilan. And if you know the self, what further is there? That is why there is that nothing to be done, nothing further to be done. Krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha. There is nothing further to be achieved. But Bhagavan is saying that everything is already in you. In the sense, even mentally, everything is already in us. This it includes the entire world. It includes the entire universe. Bhagavan says there is nothing even apart from that mentally. He talks about that Eka Jiva. And if we look at it practically also, say if I s- admire something, if I admire a quality, oh, that person has got so much of bhakti, it is so nice. How is it that I am able to admire that quality? How is it that I am able to appreciate that quality? Unless that quality is already there in me in seed form, unless that awareness is already there in me, how will I be able to appreciate it? How will I be able to appreciate what is said? If I do have no gandha, we say, no fragrance of music within us, can we appreciate a note of music, a beautiful note of music? So for us, neither harmony nor disharmony would make a difference unless we are tuned to music. So this is already given. Everything is already given. That was the beautiful example which was brought home to us. When we extend that example a bit, then we understand that abidance in the self is also already given to us. That is also already there. Because if the awareness of the self were not to be there, what else could be there? Because of self awareness only, all other awareness happens. And because of the awareness of the glory of self awareness only, we seek it. We want to get back to it. So it is there. But the only thing is, for some reason, we cannot explain it. It is mysterious. There seems to be a divide, and there seems to be a need for this practice, the practice of negating the avidya, of negating that which is an illusion. And what better means for us to negate than through the question, who am I? Because that is all, that is as permeating as the pure I. So it is comes closest to the pure I. The question, who am I itself, it immediately takes us back to that pure I. The moment that question is asked with absolute intensity, it has to result in total silence. And that is the neti, that is the negation of all attributes. When one is asked, who am I? When I do not know who I am, what attribute can I hold on to? So the automatically the attributes are negated, at least for at that moment, at that point of time. Then Bhagavan says, don't tire. If by chance it rises again you ask. Again, if it rises again, you ask. That's all that needs to be done. And it will automatically take us back to the truth. And these verses, by talking about the glory also of that state, Adi Shankara says in his Nirvana Shatkam, Name Buddhya Hankara Chittani Naham, Nacha Shrotra Jihve, Nacha Grana Netre, Nacha Vyoma Bhumim, Na Tejo, Na Vayu, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. That Chidananda Rupa, that is our true nature, that which cannot be described, but which the great ones, Adi Shankara and Bhagavan, by translating that and putting his own stamp of authority on it, they, in their compassion, great compassion, are describing the indescribable to give us that incentive, to give us the enthusiasm, to give us the eagerness to get back and abide in that by that very grace. Om Namo Bhagavate.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana to all.